Ironically enough, given that it's all about the preservation of ancient wonders, there have been few films age quite as well as Jurassic Park. Despite its heavy use of special effects that are now 27 years out of date, oh my god, I'm so old, the movie still holds up against a lot of today's blockbuster fare and somehow still looks better than its own modern sequels. Few films before or since have gripped audiences of all ages quite like this. The 90s convention of a huge summer blockbuster wasn't invented with this film, but it's arguably where the concept hit a critical and cultural peak. Jurassic Park in 1993 was even bigger than the stunningly realised creatures its marketing was based around. While its legacy can and will be talked about for another 27 years, there's still plenty to be gleaned from a high-definition rewatch. Spielberg's attention to detail was peerless at the time, and the number of incredible odes, references, tributes, and hidden gems he managed to include here is simply extraordinary. So from his own directorial trademarks to genius motifs hidden in the plot itself, my name is Adam Cleary, and these are 20 things you somehow missed in Jurassic Park. Number 20, Spielberg's cameo. Unlike some of his contemporaries who love to write themselves a prominent role in a movie, I'm looking at you, Quentin. Steven Spielberg is very rarely seen in front of the cameras. I mean, what did he do? Austin Powers? That's it. However, he does play a very small part in Jurassic Park, seen here supervising the unloading of the Velociraptor from early in the movie. He's the one with the beard, in just there in front of the gate with the white shirt. You have got to squint a bit. Number 19, Mr. DNA. While receiving a tour of the facility, Dr. Grant, Dr. Sattler, and Ian Malcolm are given a video presentation about how the park was conceived by a very friendly animated strain of acid called Mr. DNA. While it's a bit of a hokey scene and incredibly heavy on the exposition, it was a request made by the filmmakers to try and control the budget. By having one cheesy scene that explains the entire premise of the film, how they discovered the dinosaurs, and how they subsequently built the park, it saved millions of dollars on the writing and filming required to transmit that information to the audience otherwise. Not to mention, keeping the runtime down. Number 18, Must Go Faster. Around halfway through the movie, Dr. Sattler and Muldoon head out into the park to try and find what happened to the two explorers. Dr. Grant and the children are missing, Gennaro is found in multiple pieces, but Ian Malcolm is just about still alive and in need of help. After getting him onto the Jeep, they are found by the Rex. A chase scene ensues, and with the Rex quickly gaining ground on the group, Malcolm utters the line, "Must go faster." Now, director Ronald Emmerich liked it so much that when he found himself working with Jeff Goldblum the following year, he had it written into the script of Independence Day. Goldblum saying it to Will Smith's Captain Hiller as they attempt to escape the alien mothership. Number 17, 15 Minutes of Fame. As well as being the entire premise of the movie, it's hard to argue that dinosaurs aren't also the stars of Jurassic Park. Virtually all of the film's most memorable or iconic moments involve them, and it's hard to recall any major scenes where they don't feature in some capacity. However, when totted up across the 2-hour 7-minute runtime, dinosaurs are actually only on screen for a grand total of 15 minutes. Even more extraordinary is that for all of the praise of the film's digital effects work, CG dinosaurs only make up 6 of those 15 minutes. Number 16, Laura Dern. Laura Dern's performance is often picked out as one of the highlights of the entire movie, but her experience of Jurassic Park was a lot more real than it might have looked. Firstly, in the scene where Ellie is attacked by the raptor in the maintenance corridor, the tears streaming down her face were not originally part of the script. She was in fact crying for real, as the way the shot had been constructed genuinely terrified her. Slightly more subtly though, her character flirting with Ian Malcolm also had its roots planted in reality, as she began a relationship with Jeff Goldblum after the film as a result of their time together on set. Cute. Number 15, Nedry's desk. While we are reintroduced to Dennis Nedry in the Jurassic Park control room, his computer is home to a veritable treasure trove of movie Easter eggs. One subtle inclusion is a small picture of Robert Oppenheimer, the so-called father of the atomic bomb, who is arguably the poster boy for man's fear of its own creation. On a lighter note, a small window on the screen of his computer can clearly be seen playing the movie Jaws. Not only a nod to Steven Spielberg's previous work, but also the first time in his career he'd worked with animatronic animals. Number 14, The Storm. Jurassic Park's production was plagued by the arrival of Hurricane Iniki onto the movie sets. This forced a number of changes to the schedule, as well as elements of the operation to be moved back to Los Angeles for the remainder of the shoot. Ironic, really, as the arrival of a major storm is also a plotline of the movie. However, what often passes viewers by is that the storm in this film is not merely there to fill in the narrative hole of the story, but to dramatically illustrate man's inability to effectively control nature. As well as the creatures in the park running amok, InGen's state-of-the-art facility is entirely undone by, of all things, some weather. Number 13, the Dilophosaurus doesn't move. To get the exact look he was after, Steven Spielberg had to effectively invent new forms of creature design and new ways in which to film them. The advances this movie made in digital digital effects are still being felt today, as too are the elaborate animatronics that comprise the bulk of the dinosaurs seen on screen. However, one thing the production crew wasn't satisfied with was the DILOPHOSAURUS, specifically that they couldn't find a convincing way to make it move on screen. Every attempt either seemed too light or too heavy for its body, so in the end they compromised and had it stand still in every single shot. Number 12, Exit Through the Gift Shop. As well as being an enormous success at the box office, Jurassic Park was one of the biggest commercial successes in cinema history. The marketing and merchandise budgets dwarfed the $60 million cost of production, but also recouped considerably more than the $83 million the film made at the box office in its opening week. Part of this was down to the 100 separate licensing agreements Universal had reached prior to production, and the genius decision to include only official merchandise in the movie's own gift shop. Everything seen on screen, from toys, figures, clothes, lunchboxes, even a book titled The Making of Jurassic Park, could be purchased in real life. Number 11, Attention to Detail. During the terrifying game of cat and mouse between Tim, Lex, and the two velociraptors, there's a moment in the kitchen that's usually considered a bit of a plot hole. Tim runs into the freezer room where somehow the floor just happens to be covered in ice. Despite this being very convenient for a small child with rubber-soled sneakers, it's actually a testament to the detail that went into the writing. Prior to this scene, John Hammond is eating the ice cream that would otherwise have defrosted due to the power being out. This would no doubt have caused water to leak from the freezers and onto the floor as everything inside them began to thaw. However, after this, Dr. Sattler is able to restore power to the park. This would reactivate the freezers and, as a result, cause the water on the floor to freeze back over. So you see, it's actually really clever. Number 10, ACGT. One of the movie's most iconic visuals sees the velociraptors stalking Dr. Grant, Dr. Sattler, Tim, and Lex as they attempt to escape through the ceiling crawl space. One of the raptors rears up on its legs, stretches its neck out and attempts to sniff them out, while the phosphorus green glow of a computer monitor patterns its skin. This is often incorrectly attributed to light being reflected through the bars of the ceiling grate, but it's actually the letters ACGT, specifically an abbreviation of adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine, the four key components of DNA. Number 9, Triceratops colors. Another iconic moment in the film sees Dr. Grant, Dr. Sattler, Ian Malcolm, and assorted park employees attempting to treat a Triceratops with a bad stomach. They check it over, inspect its eyes, and Sam Neill even takes a moment to appreciate the miraculous beauty of the creature. Not in a weird way, but in a decision that probably went down incredibly badly with the people who designed the creatures, the Triceratops was originally bright and colourful. Purples, greens, yellows, its hide was one of the most visually stunning things in the entire film until effects coordinator Stan Winston took one look at it, decided it didn't match its surroundings well enough, and just covered it in mud. You can still sort of faintly see it though. Number 8, Picasso. In 1937, Pablo Picasso created Guernica, an oil painting that's still to this day considered to be one of the most moving and powerful anti-war paintings in history. Depicting the horrendous aerial bombing of the Spanish town of the same name, its ability to invoke horror and anxiety is undisputed in the art world. Wanting to recreate a slice of said horror and anxiety, Spielberg commissioned a special dinosaur-themed reworking of the painting to be displayed in the Visitors Center. It can briefly be seen behind John Hammond later in the film and, well, very weird flex, but okay. Number 7, The Godfather. Despite surviving and being a far nicer character in Michael Crichton's novel, Donald Gennaro meets Jurassic Park's grisliest fate at the hands and teeth of the T-Rex. It's not immediately obvious, but when he initially makes it into the toilet stall, he begins to mutter a Hail Mary. This was, according to actor Martin Ferrero, an idea he took from one of the final scenes of The Godfather Part 2, where Fredo mutters his own Hail Mary prior to Neri killing him on Lake Tahoe. Quite what he saw as the similarities between these two characters, I'm not totally sure, but there you are. Number 6, Killing for Sport. There's an interesting line in the Lost World Jurassic Park where the expedition's leader reassures the terrified group that the Rex just fed, so he won't be hunting for a while. While that's an incredibly callous way to refer to the man who's just been eaten alive, it's also entirely correct, which makes the behaviour of the velociraptors in this movie quite curious. In the final act of the film, they kill Robert Muldoon and Ray Arnold, two fully grown adults who would likely feed a pack of raptors for a number of days. Yet, they continue to hunt Tim and Lex and Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler. While it's never explicitly stated on screen, this is because they're not hunting to eat, they're hunting for sport. Or possibly even in the case of Muldoon, hunting for revenge. One of the franchise's many clues at their overall intelligence. Number 5, why didn't I build in Orlando? Faced with the impending problems created by the incoming storm, John Hammond reflects on the park's tropical location with the line, why didn't I build in Orlando? It's an amusing throwaway line, but it's also a little joke being had at the expense of Universal Studios, the movie's distributors. Universal, you see, had 2 theme parks all of their own at the time, and both were situated in Orlando. One of them, Universal Orlando Resort, is now currently home to the Jurassic Park River Adventure, which incorporates elements of the movie into a log flume ride, and apparently they've spared no expense. Number 4, fish out of water. Early in the movie, Dr. Sattler comments that these are aggressive living things that have no idea what century they're in, and they'll defend themselves violently if necessary. It's a neat line of foreshadowing, but it also gives away how they can be defeated. In Jurassic Park, whenever a character is caught by one of the dinosaurs in the wild, that is the end of them. Gennaro on the toilet, Muldoon in the jungle, even Nedry on the waterfall, all of them are made short work of. However, when they're able to take the creatures into a more man-made setting, like Tim and Lex in the kitchen or the final scene of the film, the humans are able to use their environment to survive. Number 3, eye level. The movie's smartest visual motif is one you're almost certain to have been oblivious to. In the first half of the movie, whenever a character is looking at a dinosaur on screen, they are doing so below eye level. The birth of the raptor eggs, the sick Triceratops, they do move in herds. All of this is from a high to low perspective. However, the second half of the film flips this entirely, where all shots are now of the characters looking up at the dinosaurs. Everything with the T-Rex goes without saying, but Tim and Lex crawl along the floor in the kitchen, the Brachiosaurus looms over Dr. Grant, and even Muldoon crouches down to hunt the raptor. Very simply, this is to represent the changing levels of control in the park. The big exception to this is of course the initial scene where Grant and Sattler first encounter the Brachiosaurus, but this is used to represent the marvel and wonder of the park's premise. Number 2, the seatbelt foreshadowing. Life finds a way is arguably Jurassic Park's most enduring quote, but it's only used by Ian Malcolm as a retort when Dr. Wu asks, "You're implying that a group composed entirely of female animals will breed?" It's a fair question, but one that's smartly foreshadowed slightly earlier in the movie. When making the bumpy descent in the park's helicopter, Dr. Grant frantically fumbles around with his seatbelt, only to be left holding the 2 female ends of the buckle. Thinking on his feet, he simply ties them together, forming a makeshift belt. It wasn't life itself on display here, but nonetheless, he found a way. Number 1, we spared no expense. Another profound quote from the movie sees John Hammond say, "We spared no expense no less than 5 times. First when he's asking Grant and Sattler to visit, then later when they arrive at the park, again when introducing the presentation, later on the electric cars, and finally as a bit of hubris while eating the defrosting ice cream." The irony in this, of course, is that the power outages and the ultimate collapse of the park is down to the actions of Dennis Nedry, a man we discover is only working there because of how low his bid was to run the park systems. If Hammond had spared no expense there, none of this would have happened. So there you have it, those are 20 things you somehow missed in Jurassic Park, read to you by a man who dearly wanted to include the child arguing about the raptor is secretly Owen Grady thing, but apparently it's not true. Let us know what you made of it all in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like, share and subscribe. In the meantime though, thank you so much for watching. I've of course been Adam Cleary, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.